Okay, so today we are talking about, do we call a comeback in the downtown markets? This is Laricy Live, and I'm your host, Matt Laricy, giving you unfiltered access to the world of real estate. We cover market trends, news, and give you the honest answers that will keep you ahead of the real estate game. Laricy Live is brought to you by Zenlist. Do you want to know the secret to growing a high-volume real estate business? It's not just about generating the most leads. The key to success for Laricy's agents is providing the best client experience. We put our clients on Zenlist because we know that they're getting the modern, mobile experience they not only want, but expect from their agent in this day and age. Using Zenlist with our clients put us all together in a shared space where we could work together during the home search process, which helps us be efficient and provides our clients the VIP treatment. Sign up for Zenlist using code LARICYLIVE, no spaces, all lowercase, to save $240 on your first year's subscription. Laricy Live is also brought to you by Lincoln Title. Lincoln Title is the best and most efficient title company in Chicago and the best place to close your property. We have been saying it's been a tale of two cities for pretty much the last 3 years, and the heart of the city, downtowns, let's call it South Loop up to Gold Coast, all over to the West Loop, have been atrocious. And what I refer to as the outskirts has been amazing. And now what we're starting to see is the heart of the city start to make a little bit of a comeback. Now, listen, I'm not saying it's back, but today what we want to talk about is what we're seeing. What are we seeing in the heart of the city, and why are we think it's coming back? Why do we think it's bottomed and the worst is behind us? So these questions are kind of referring to that. So what do you think? Why do you think the market's coming back downtown? Well, let me tell you why. We started last year above 8.5 months of inventory. This year we're starting at 3.1 months of inventory, which is the lowest amount of inventory we've seen since 2019. Now, I went to Eastern Illinois, okay? I didn't go to Harvard. I didn't go to Oxford. I'm not an Ivy League guy. I mean, hell, I call Eastern Illinois like the Harvard of the Midwest, but it's not what I would call the most prestigious college here, and I got C's there, okay? But not me, the Ivy League people told me about this rule called supply and demand, and they said, not me, that if you have low supply and high demand, that prices go up. Now, again, their rule, not mine. I'm just the idiot that went to Eastern. This is Ivy League rules. Now, if we have lower supply, the lowest supply we've had since 2019, and demand is up, I would assume that means that prices would go up according to the Ivy League people out there. So, according to them, that's why I think the market's going to be coming back, because you have lower supply and higher demand. What will the near future hold for downtown prices? Well, I just went on a whole tangent about it. It's going to go up. Listen, I don't think we're going to be in skyrocket position. I don't think like, hey, you got something at 500,000, now it's worth like 800,000. I think, hey, if you got something that's worth 500,000, it's going to stop going backwards. Okay, I think we've seen the backwards kind of happen, and I think we're on a slow and steady, a turtle kind of pace of our prices going up. Buyers coming back slowly, but are afraid of rates. Why do you think that is? I mean, the rate problem is happening all across the board. It's not just affecting the downtown markets. I think that's pushing some people into rentals, but ultimately, I don't think that's really having a major impact in the downtown markets. What are good areas to get a good deal? I would say that the best deals are going to be in the Loop, New East Side, Gold Coast, River North, and Sugarville. Those were the hardest hit areas, okay? So that's where you could get the best deal. Are you seeing investors come back to high rises? We normally see investors come back during, volatile times like today. When you got like a tricky stock market, you got high inflation, you got high rents, you got investors coming out of the place. And now you got a lot of people who are like, hey, I just like to, invest in big cities. Chicago might be one of them. And this could be a good time to get in while the prices are down. So yeah, we're seeing investors come back, especially with the rental markets being so hot and people getting relocated to the city. Rents are not crazy yet. I'm seeing prices are in line with last year, which was crazy. Not a lot of showings, but these units are renting at their list prices. Why is that? Well, I mean, we're still seeing a lot of people who are afraid of like the heart of the city. and they're saying like, hey, I may not want to buy just yet due to the crime, and maybe I'm not going back to work and stuff like that. So they are willing to rent. So we're not seeing as many showings on a lot of our rental listings, but they're renting really quickly for record prices, which is one of the reasons why it's pushing a lot of people into the buyer markets in the heart of the city, because they are looking at rentals and like, oh, wow, it's actually cheaper or almost as cheap to buy than it is to rent. So I'm going to do that. Buyers seem to be making quick decisions. The one we don't see seem like they want to waste a lot of time looking for months. They're making offers. Why are buyers making offers quicker after 2 or 3 tours? I mean, listen, that's just kind of what happens this time of year. You get a lot of buyers that are ready to go because they're on these lease cycles. So a good thing that we're seeing for these downtown markets is that like these buildings that were sitting for a while, 100 plus days, with almost no activity, you got people who are renting next door and their lease is up April 1st, and now we're in January, February, and people are like, crap, I got to buy because I only got 2 months to get out of there. So they're making decisions. They're making decisions quick. Are you seeing the sellers being demanded and expecting too much, or are they more eager to sell and more negotiable? I'm seeing in the downtown markets, for the most part, I'm seeing pretty realistic sellers, okay? I'm not saying there's some sellers out there that aren't crazy over asking for the properties, but for the most part, most sellers downtown are reasonable because they've been in such a bad position for so long that they've just been kind of beaten down to be like, hey, listen, if I'm not going to ask a realistic price for this property, it's not going to sell. We're seeing the opposite in the outskirts. I'm seeing a lot of cocky sellers in the outskirts that are just reaching too long. And honestly, those guys are going to get burned. They're going to lose a lot of money. I've seen people turn down offers that I think are 100% acceptable. I know what's going to happen is that they're not going to get it again. It's going to end up selling for less, and they're going to be mad at us for it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you can only try to teach somebody so much, that sometimes people just have to learn the lesson on their own. How much has crime played into the downtown markets, and how's that affecting the comeback? So crime's been a huge factor. When you've had big riots and looting and pretty much a news story every week about somebody getting hurt or carjacked or their Cadillac converter stolen or mugged or stabbed or shot or whatever it is, it deters people from saying, hey, I want to go to the city. I mean, the media right now has played up the downtown market that essentially if you're going to go walk on Michigan Avenue, there's a 50% chance that you're going to die. I mean, that's how a lot of people feel. And you say, hey, Matt, I don't feel that way. Well, guess what? I go and see, anybody out there, you guys subscribe to CWB? It's actually like it's really good news. It's actual news. There's no pretty much opinions in it. It's just like, here's the facts. And I read the comments on there, and it's all people like, hey, I would never go downtown. Like, I'm too scared. So, I look at the Tribune when they make posts about crime, and I read the comments, and all the people talking about how they're scared. So it's not me saying it. I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I've seen like a few thousand comments just from like the small sample of stuff that I've read where people are talking about they're scared. So yeah, people are scared to come downtown. That's going to affect prices. We need that to change. That hasn't changed yet. But yeah, that's a factor of why I don't think the downtown market is back. That's why I think the downtown market's making a comeback. In order to be completely back, the crime has to be completely turned around. The city has to feel safe in the heart of the city. It has to have a perception that you could walk out the door and go to the play and not have a fear of getting mugged. Until that fear is wiped off the streets, it's not going to be completely back. We're coming back. Remember, guys, I'm saying we're coming back. We're not back. There's a word in between that. It's called coming back. That's a big factor. 4 years ago, it was never like that. I don't know, maybe it has something to do with the management in charge, guys, but for the time being, that's going to be affecting a full comeback. If there was less crime, would the market be better? Yes, absolutely, 100% yes. Michigan Avenue is still struggling. How can you say the market's coming back when it's with that being so bad? I mean, listen, all retail across the country is struggling. This isn't just a Michigan Avenue thing. I mean, one thing I tell people is like Michigan Avenue got literally decimated by COVID, and then it was like completely shot to like put out back and shot behind the barn after the looting. That was like the end all. That was the death sentence for it. And the reality is that like, the big problem is that retail has changed after COVID happened. So now we were stuck with, hey, Michigan Avenue got demolished, and now retail has to reinvent itself, and we don't have people that are trying to reinvent Michigan Avenue. Now, I think that's going to change. I don't think Michigan Avenue is going to completely go away. But again, this is one of the reasons why we're coming back and we're not back. I do see a lot more people on Michigan Avenue because I drive down it every day, and it's packed. It's not as packed as I've seen before, but it's coming back. So I do think this is a moment for Michigan Avenue to reinvent itself. I think it's a good thing. Listen, like you can't always keep doing the same shit and think it's going to work, okay? Time change, people's change, okay? Like people today in 2023 are different than people today in 1923, okay? Shopping's done differently, people act differently, the tendencies are different. And I think I'm actually kind of excited because maybe we'll have 3 or 4 bad years on Michigan Avenue. But if Michigan Avenue wants to stay around, they have to remain relevant. And if they reinvent themselves, who knows? Who knows what the future can bring for it? But I think it's exciting that they have that chance to do it. And although they probably don't want this chance, they have to take this chance to do it to be better. Do you feel inventory has been lower this January compared to previous years? I just talked about this. January, it is lower. It's statistically lower. I didn't make it up. I can't change the stats, guys. The stats are the stats. And, we're less than half the inventory. We're the lowest inventory since 2019. That's a big difference. 2019 was a good year for downtown. How do you see this year compared to previous years for the Chicago market as a whole, excluding suburbs? It's to everybody. This is Feb 1. We're not supposed to be giving out dates. This is Feb 1. I just looked at InfoSparks, which shows you the top 10 agents. Like we're barely in the top 10, and everybody that's in the top 10 right now are like not people who are normally in the top 10, and it's all people who just had like 1 or 2 big sales. Everybody had a horrible January for closings. But remember, guys, January closings is a direct result of November and December contracts. We are seeing contracts. We're actually up contracts for contracts for places under contract this January compared to last January. Now, most of that is in the heart of the city, though. And that's why I'm saying it's coming back is that the contracts I'm writing is in the heart of the city. I'm seeing less contracts on multi-million-dollar properties in the outskirts. I'm seeing less places going under contract in the outskirts compared to the downtown. Now, I'm not saying it's like substantially less. It's not like the outskirts are bad by any means. And somebody's going to watch this and be like, I think Lincoln Park's on fire. It is on fire. It is. I'm just saying, I feel like it was a little bit more on fire last year than this year. That's all. I still think last year's probably going to perform a little bit better than this year. But the big difference is going to be if we don't have recession. If we don't have recession, I'm telling you right now, I actually think we'll finish better this year because you have to look at the year as a whole. Everybody is so knee-jerk reaction these days. It's like I read an article in the paper 2 days ago, and they said, it was Wall Street Journal, and they said buyers are coming back already. Is this too early? And I was like, well, no, Wall Street Journal, you're just, do the fear mongering more than anybody else does. You said nobody would ever buy again. And now they don't know what to do because they weren't right and they're never right. And they're trying to make up some stupid article about the reasons behind it and blaming all these other stuff like global warming and it's being hotter. So more people are coming out earlier and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is that guess what? People just realize that, you know what? Rates are where they're at. Maybe it's not going to be as bad as it is. And I still got to move. I gotta buy or I gotta sell. That's what people in the papers don't realize. There's something what I call intangibles. Sometimes things don't go as you plan. Somebody out there may have seen this before. I don't know if anybody out there ever watched sports, but sometimes you'll watch a sport, okay? And you got 2 teams going against each other, and one is a heavy, heavy favorite. In fact, most people, they do the interviews with the broadcasters before the game, right? You've seen this before, and they're like, I picked the Buffalo Bills. And everybody's like, I picked the Bills, right? And then the Browns come out of nowhere and win. Like, how did that happen? I can't believe it. And they're like, well, statistically speaking, the Bills should have dominated this game, but somehow they lost. Why is that, guys? There's something called intangibles. You could sit there and look at all the stats and the data and all the stuff and be like, well, I think, a square fits into a square and that's it. But sometimes there's an intangible that comes along and it changes things. And that's why sometimes the underdog wins. Why am I going on this tangent? Because we get a lot of these papers who talk about well, these things will never happen because here's the stats, and then it changes. It's like, well, why are the buyers coming back earlier? I don't know. There's a million things that happen that affect why people buy. And that's a big reason why the cities are coming back. As much as the papers told you that they wouldn't come back, that people would never live in cities. They said people wouldn't go to sporting events. They said people wouldn't go to restaurants. They said the concerts were over, that we're all going to live in caves in the middle of Iowa for the rest of our lives, and that was going to be life. Well, guess what? There's some intangibles. You know what that intangible is out there, guys? It's something called human nature. It's something called that we're creatures of habit. It's something called that we like to be around other people. It's something called that we don't like to sit in caves by ourselves because we get bored. That's why you got Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and all these other stuff, because you got to watch TV and you want to talk to your friends about what you just watched and get their opinions. And then you're going to BS with each other about why you think you're right or wrong on that, because we like being around people, and that has to do with cities. And that's why cities are making a comeback as much as the media is telling you it would never happen. And that's why we're doing this, because we're telling people these are the real facts of what's going on down here, not this BS statistical data that they're drawing up from a guy that lives in New York in his underwear that's never been to Chicago telling you what's going to happen down here. Now, do you feel like the city is different compared to last year? That's a good tangent, huh? I do feel like the city is different. I see more people. I see more restaurants. Here's a good example. Like I tried to get into a restaurant. I haven't been out to dinner in like a year. Tried getting on some new restaurant got opened up, Lay Select. Shout out to the Boco group. It looks cool. I'm a French guy. I wanted to go to it. It's like 3 months out booked. Maybe it's because Boca is like popular and stuff like that. But my point is, like, last year I could go online and pretty much book a restaurant whenever I wanted to. Like there wasn't like that big of a wait. So like, you know, the city feels different. You see people walking around more. You see bars packed. You see restaurants packed. You see sporting events packed. You like, you could feel the energy here. I really feel if we get a new CEO and we get crime turned around, like that's it. The city will be fully back. Again, we're calling this a comeback for the downtown markets. It's not back, but you could kind of feel like the pendulum is starting to swing in the right direction. That right isn't left anymore and down isn't up. Do you feel downtown market is fully making a comeback? Yeah, we're talking about this. That's what I'm solely seeing firsthand. The showings go up. I'm seeing contracts go up. We've had 2-3 different places now in the downtown markets that we couldn't give away for 2 years straight that we ended up renting, that we put back on the market this year and sold with multiple bids. Couldn't give it away last year. Didn't even have a showing. My seller's like, wait a second. We have 2 offers? Like, Matt, like we said, we went on the market this time last year for like 4 months and didn't have a showing. How are we getting 2 offers? That's what's happening, guys. You got a property at a building that didn't get a showing last year. 4 months, no showings, literally no showings. Comes on this year, selling first weekend on the market. It's crazy. How am I saying it's a comeback? Is it just that property? No, we're seeing it across numerous properties. I'm getting outbid on properties downtown. I didn't see that before. I'm calling up some of these agents to present these offers. I'm like, hey, we got an offer. Like, we already got 3 offers. I'm like, what? You just came on the market. You're in River North. Am I calling? I'm like, are you sure? Am I talking about the River North property? They're like, yeah. I'm like, wow, it's kind of crazy, right? Like, didn't see that last year. So am I calling the downtown market? Am I seeing it come back? Yeah, I'm seeing it firsthand. I'm seeing it from being in the trenches. Okay, how many showings are you getting on your listings per week? Has it increased or decreased? I mean, showings have like completely come back. I mean, we're averaging over 30 showings a day across our listings. You know, at this time in December, we're averaging like maybe 2 to 3 showings a day. Like, I'm mostly mad because like last quarter I told my whole staff, my guys, listen, like enjoy the rest of December while you can. You know, hang out with their families. Tell them you love them, like get some family time in, because come January, it's going to go from 0 to 100 really fast. And I don't want to hear anybody bitching about like, oh, I'm busy or I need some time off or blah, blah, blah. Because I'm like, this is the time to make, hey, these are the best months of the year. Let's kind of go and take advantage of the opportunities we get. And now that pedals to the metal and people are like, holy shit. Like I listen to the way you talk. I thought it would be big, but like, this is like overwhelming. Yeah, we're crushing it on showings. Last weekend, we had over 210 showings across our listings. It was nuts. And it's going to keep getting nuts. And showings are only going to continue to increase as the confidence grows in the city, which is leading to people having more confidence and the city coming back. Am I seeing more multiple bids? Absolutely. I'm seeing a ton of multiple bids. It's crazy. Like, most of the stuff I'm offering on is multiple bids. Now, I have a ton of properties that have no multiple bids, but I'm saying in that entry-level price point, it's been pretty crazy. Which inventory are you seeing inventory move the most in? Honestly, it's the outskirts are still beating the downtown and like maybe like the amount of inventory moving. But if we're just concentrating on the downtown, I'm actually seeing West Loop and River North crushing in contracts. I'm seeing it big time. Now I'm seeing the Loop struggle. The Loop is still getting like, it's still pretty bad. It's better. Like, we sold some properties in Loop this year, but like I got a lot of stuff in Loop where I'm like, I got to tell the sellers, I'm like, I don't know. We got no showings. And we got like, I probably have 10 properties in Loop right now. No, 12 properties in Loop right now for sale. And like, we're probably averaging like 1 showing a week across all 12. So that one is still struggling, but I do think that one's going to come back. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but inventory there is low. Inventory there is still down from where it was last year, and we're seeing more and more businesses start to open up. So like the more that happens, the more confidence is going to rise, and hopefully the more of those will start selling. Let's see here. Is there a rise of empty nester buyers? We're seeing a lot of empty nester buyers come back. Empty nesters haven't existed really for like 2 years. Last year we touched on empty nesters kind of starting to come back a little bit, but we're really, at least 10 properties this year, at least sold to people downsizing. We're now starting to see a lot of people who they were afraid to come downtown because of the crime that we mentioned earlier. They were afraid to come downtown because they just didn't know what was going on. And they were also like, well, I'm working from home and blah, 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 and et cetera. And now we're seeing those people the kids are definitely out of the house for college now. And they got this huge house and there's just nothing to do up there. And we came downtown for dinner with some friends and they got a place down here. And, we kind of realized we do miss the city. And as much bad as you hear about it, we came down here and we didn't really feel it was that bad. And we like being down here. So we want to buy a place. That's what it takes. It takes these people to kind of come downtown, visit a friend, and then be like, oh, that's not what the media tells me to do. So it's not as bad. I'm not saying guys, this is the safest thing in the world to come down to and you're 1,000% protected. I'm not saying that by any means. I'm just saying that, you're not 100%, possible to get shot if you walk outside your car. And I think a lot of the perception is that's what's going to happen. And when people come down here to dinner or visit a friend that has a place down here, they feel more comfortable. And when they feel more comfortable, they look around I don't know. I like the energy the big city has to offer. It's cool. It's something different. It's something different than my 8,000 square foot mansion in the middle of the woods way up north that has no restaurants around it. So yeah, that's why we're seeing the empty nester market start to come back a little bit. How will layoffs affect the downtown market? This is a big one. We're seeing a lot of layoffs. Maybe 6 months ago we predicted that we'd see a bunch of layoffs this year. It's been one of my biggest predictions out there is that we'd see mass layoffs. I've been talking about this for some time. You can't. Unemployment's been an all-time low for too long, and people have been making a ton of money and not doing much. And I get people out there and be like, "Oh, you think the CEOs need to make a ton of money and blah blah." I'm not saying that. I'm just saying in general, people aren't doing anything. I got my own brother as a perfect example. Kid doesn't do anything, gets paid a shit ton of money, just sits around, does nothing. And I got tons of friends that are like that, making hundreds of thousands of dollars doing absolutely nothing. They brag about it. I worked 2 days this week. Just got to check in online, et cetera. I'm this isn't real life. I tell this to people all the time. You can't make $200,000 a year, go online, click a button, and then tour a golf course all day long with your buddies, and then brag to me about how awesome it is and how rich you are to do nothing. I'm sorry, and I'm sure some people out there that doesn't happen. I could probably name 50 people without even thinking about it. That happens. In fact, I got a lot of clients where they're touring. They're on calls, but they're not really on calls, and they joke around about it. So yeah, now what's happening is that these businesses aren't making as much money. So when the business start making less money, what are they saying? They're well, I don't know. We got to kind of crack down a little bit more. And how are we going to crack down? What's the most expensive thing we got? Well, employment's the most important. Employees are the most expensive thing we got. Well, let's cut some of those people. And then they cut some of those people and oh, we saved a bunch of money and we're not any less efficient. And then they cut more people and oh, we're still not any less efficient. And the reality is that there's just been a lot of people out there that have been taking advantage of the system. Now, I'm not saying that I think people should be laid off. I'm not saying people shouldn't be able to pay their bills. That's not what I'm saying at all, because I know somebody's going to come up and comment on this. All I'm saying is that I just think that there's been a good population or a good portion of the population that's been taking advantage of the system out there that's this whole work from home. And that, those type of people are going to get cut, and they'll find another job, especially with unemployment claiming where it's at. But the layoffs are going to affect the marketplace because that, in my opinion, is going to force more people to go back to the office. And the more people that go back to the office, the more attractive our city is going to be. We are seeing in fact, majority of the buyers that I've been getting from calls that are leads out of nowhere have been people getting relocated back to work. They're hey, listen, my company's laid off 10% of the staff. In order for me to stick around here, I got to move back to the city. So I need to find a place and be close to work. I'm a little nervous. It's possible I could lose my job, but I think as long as I'm in the office 4 to 5 days a week and I live close by, I'll be fine. So, I think layoffs, I don't think we're going to get to a 50% laid off part. I think the layoffs are going to go up. I still think we'll be at a low unemployment rate. But I do think that the more people who get laid off, I think it's going to kind of scare people to perform better at work, but also force more people back to the city. And I think that's going to be a good thing. How does going back to work affect the market? I mean, that changes everything. The more people are back at the office, the better. I think we're hovering around like a 46 to 50% back to the office rate. And it's continuing to grow. And the 3-day mandatory work week I'm now hearing is 4 days for most of my clients. I think by the end of the year, we'll be at a 5-day work week. And I think we'll probably see about 60 to 65% of people back at the office 5 days a week. I think the recession will play a big factor into that, but that's also going to have a big impact on our market because the more people that are back at the office, that's people don't realize is that it's like a snowball effect in the sense that like people go back to work, so then like people need to eat, right? Because you're back at the office. So then they're going to look around to find a restaurant to go to. And then like a lot of the restaurants in Loop got crushed because nobody was eating lunch there anymore. And that's kind of how a lot of these restaurants stay alive, they eat lunch. So then these restaurants come back and be like, oh my God, there's demand of people again. Like let's open up a restaurant to get people to eat, right? And then those people got employees, and those employees got to live somewhere. A lot of the employees are like, hey, listen, I want to be kind of around like where the restaurant is. So then they're going to rent a place around there. And then there's going to be a lot of people that are renting a place down there, and that's going to push rental prices up. And that's going to be like, hey, listen, it's cheaper for me to buy. So then they're going to want to buy in the Loop. And then other people are going to come downtown and say, hey, I want to walk to work. So then I'm going to buy in the Loop. So again, it's a snowball effect. So all of this stuff plays into a factor of why the downtown market, I think, is coming back. Again, not back, but coming back. You live downtown. Are you feeling better about where you live compared to a year ago? Yeah. I mean, I remember before we got pregnant with our third kid is that, my wife was talking about like maybe we have to move to the burbs with all the crime and the city being kind of shut down still. And I said, listen, like I always compare it to like, it's kind of like you're in a bad relationship with a girlfriend, right? Like you kind of, or a boyfriend, right? Like it's not working out well. You got to get out of it. But you're kind of like, it's kind of a lot of work to get out of this thing, You know what I'm talking. Everybody out there has been in one of these, right? You're like, I don't want to do it because like, it's going to be tough, but you got to do it. So you keep putting it off, right? You're like, next week's gonna be the week. And you go out to dinner, like, fuck, man, you want to say it, you don't do it. And that's kind of how I felt like the city's been recently. It's kind of like, we're in this relationship. It's just like, it's going to get better, but like, you just got to get out of where you're at right now. And I think the city's just been in a series of bad relationships with a lot of political things that have been holding the city back. And fortunately for us, I think we're a few weeks away from that changing. And I think if things go good and things do change, I think it'll help out. And if it goes the same way, I just hope that they start to turn around their attitude. But I think we've been in a bad relationship the last few years, and every single year since 21, I feel like the city has been kind of slowly getting out of that kind of bad relationship. It seems like it's changing a little bit. International buyers are big buyers for the cities. Are they buying a lot? We're seeing a big international market come back. In fact, yesterday it was 0 degrees. Maybe it was -1. It was literally freezing cold outside. This is a true story. Yesterday, 2 people from China walked off the street and came in and didn't speak English, only spoke Mandarin, and they wanted to buy a place downtown. This is a true story. We called our agent Jody. We love Jody. She left us to go to North Carolina for political reasons. She left, and we had to call her up and have her translate this whole conversation. And I was like, this is how you know the market's come back. When you got international buyers literally walking off the street in the coldest day of the year trying to buy real estate downtown because they got a daughter going to school somewhere nearby. I mean, that's just showing you that that's the market come back. I mean, international sales used to be about 20 to 25% of my business a year. In the last couple of years, it's been like less than 5%. But I think if that market comes back, it's going to change everything. It'll be huge. Now, I think that's still at the very early stages of what I would call a comeback, but you're starting to see that kind of swing. A lot of people moved to red states during the pandemic. How's that playing into the market? I mean, here's the thing is that I think everybody kind of freaked out the last few years. They moved away because of politics, they moved away because of weather, or they moved away because they didn't work from the city or work from the office and stuff like that. And if you noticed, I don't care which side of the political spectrum you sit on, but like it affected the marketplace. Anybody that says otherwise just doesn't pay attention to it. Like Texas, Florida, like Utah, some of these states like completely Tennessee like demolished the competition in the way that these prices went up. I mean, it is legitimately insane how much they went up. And now we're starting to see those people come back. Because guess what? Some of these people moved away solely over politics stuff or mask or whatever it was. Who cares what it was? But they moved away because of certain reasons. And now what we're seeing is these people, because I had a ton of these clients who are like, I hate the city and where it's going, political and blah, blah, crime. And blah, blah. And I'm like, listen, I don't disagree with some of the stuff, but, it is what it is. It's the life I chose. And now we're getting them callbacks like, I don't know, I moved to Texas and it's cool, but man, it's hot down here and I got big spiders and everybody's bitching about water all the time. And like, I don't know, like I got to drive everywhere. It's like 40 minutes to get to the grocery store. And now, they're like, I kind of miss that big city energy. And now they're coming back. So that's another big one we're seeing is that I think a lot of people panicked. I think a lot of people had again, as I mentioned earlier, we're a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction society. They just kind of like ran away. And now they're like, man, this big city, just, I just miss it. I just miss being in Chicago. No matter what, like it's just my home. And we're seeing those people start to buy places downtown again. And again, this is one of the reasons why the market's starting to come back. I mean, guys, you have to realize there's so many different things that I'm talking about right now, but it all adds up. It's like a journey of a 1,000 miles begins with a single step. It's like one thing here, right? You got international markets starting to slowly come back. You got people who moved out of state because the knee-jerk reaction is starting to come back. You got empty nesters starting to come back. You got first-time buyers coming back. You got people who had kids, the step-up buyers. They're starting to come back. We have people downtown that lived in a one-bedroom condo, right? They met somebody during the pandemic. They got, friendly with them, and then they got they moved in together and like, hey, there's two of us now, and we need a bigger place. And now those bigger place people were moving to the suburbs last year, and now they're like, you know what? Like, we're going back to the office more, and like we kind of like being in the city and being able to walk to restaurants. So we need a 2 or 3 bedroom. That market didn't exist, guys. That's another one. A lot of the first-time buyers, they just moved back home or rented. Now those people are starting to buy. Each and every single sector of the marketplace that people said wouldn't happen again or wouldn't be a big part of the marketplace is starting to come back. Are there certain buildings that are struggling more than others? Yeah, I mean, I would say buildings with heavy populations of in-towns are still struggling. That's probably one of the buildings that took the biggest hit because the demand went down the most. Like that luxury where like 60% of the building is part-time. Now, we're talking the empty nesters are coming back. We're not saying that they're not coming back. But again, coming back and back is different. So if you're still coming back, those markets are still struggling. We have a bunch of units in, what I would call empty nester friendly buildings where it's just a large population use them as in towns, and we're seeing those markets still struggle. It's not struggling as bad as it was, but it's not back. And that's the thing, guys. Why we're talking about this is that it's important to know. And if I have any sellers out there that watch these things talk about this, is they're like, well, my thing doesn't feel like it's back. I'm not saying it's back. I'm saying it's coming back. What we're starting to see is that like I really truly feel that we've bottomed. So if we were on like a line graph, we're like going up like this, COVID hit, we went, phew, and now I feel like we're leveling off, and now we're going to slowly but surely start kind of going up again. So I think that we're kind of bottomed out and starting to start to see like a little bit of a comeback. Why do co-ops struggle so much, even in good markets? I mean, people just don't like what they don't, or they kind of fight back when you don't know what it is, right? So like we try to teach people about co-ops, but these ones kind of trying to sit a little bit longer. Even in good markets, co-ops sit, and they particularly got hurt pretty bad during the last few years because a lot of people who buy them are people from Europe or New York, and a lot of those people weren't relocating for work or weren't buying second places, but I think we're going to see co-ops have a better year than last year. I don't think it's going to be like back to where it was, but I do think it's going to get better. Rents are high. Vacancy for rents is low. Is this helping the comeback? Absolutely. We're starting to see a lot of people that wanted to rent get pushed out of the rental market and become buyers. Honestly, a lot of people are like, listen, like there's just not much to rent. And like I see, good inventory places I could buy that's in my budget that I didn't think I could get. That just makes more sense for me to buy. I'm not saying it's a large portion of what we're seeing, but I mean, it's happening weekly for us personally, where we're seeing people kind of come back and want to get a place. Restaurants and nightlife seem to come back. Why not retail? I think retail is still struggling. I think it's more of like across the country type thing. I think less people went to stores because they were just shopping online. Is that going to be forever and everybody's just going to online shop or not go into places? I don't think so. I think there's always going to be a big drive for brick and mortar. Honestly, I just think a lot of people get bored. I think there's only so much you can do on your computer and sit at home. I think people like get out of the house, and I think one of that's going to retail. I just think retail in general needs to kind of reinvent itself. I don't have the answer for that. I'm not in retail market, nor do I have time to think about it. But I will tell you that I think that retail will be better this year than last year, meaning like people going into stores. Let's see here. Why are loop properties above $1 million still selling low, so slow? And if you say the market's come back, okay. So why are places above $1 million in loop are still struggling to sell? We're not seeing a lot of those go under contract. Honestly, I think One of the main reasons is it's a huge empty nester crowd, and I still think a lot of people are afraid of the loop due to crime and lack of going back to work. But I do think we're going to have a better year this year too for that type of marketplace. But if you got a place there, it's gonna be a tough market. That's not at a single point. I don't think this year will that market flip to a seller's market. But I do think it'll just be like a little bit of a buyer's market rather than like a ridiculously huge buyer's market this year. Inventory is still dropping those things. I mean, a lot of people just decided to throw in the towel. We're also seeing a lot of people who had places above $1 million that use them as in towns that were selling them because they weren't using it are coming back and they're pulling it off the market. They're saying like, hey, listen, I was only selling this because I didn't want to like be here anymore. Now they're like, you know what? I kind of want to be here. Like I kind of like being in the city again. So that's one of the reasons too why that one's kind of starting to come back. Are you seeing people with kids move back downtown? We're seeing it. We're not seeing it as much, but I mean, like if you like, I mean, I got kids, and my wife's been calling some of these schools and stuff, and they're all packed. They're all like completely at full at enrollment. And I got a 4-year-old that we're trying to put in some places. Like, so I mean, like it shows you the other people are there. I mean, I see them. I'm also not like walking around outside around schools like during the day, so I don't know how packed they are. But I can tell you that we are seeing a lot more people with kids buy up to bigger places than we have in years past, instead of just going to the suburbs. It could be, because they couldn't find anything in the burbs. But we are starting to see a lot more people kind of want to stick in the city and enjoy the city again. Lastly, how do you think the downtown market will look next year compared to this year? I think downtown, the market will be almost fully back. I think right now we're in comeback. This time next year, we should mark this down. This time next year, we should put like making almost back. Is it fully back? And then I think in 2025, it'll be 1,000% completely back and thriving. But I think it'll be in almost like full back mode by this time next year. I mean, if you think about it, we started this year with 3.1 months of inventory. I bet you we start next year around like 2.5 months, which is like, that'll be a good spring market. So let's kind of see how this year plays out. But I mean, the upside is, guys, we got a lot of good happening for the heart of the city. And the reason I'm excited about it is because for the first time since COVID started, we're actually seeing confidence rise in the heart of the city. And don't look now, we're calling it a comeback. Thanks for listening to Laricy Live.